Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Allie from amariespeaks.com and as titled, this video is going to be about shadow work practices. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome back. If you've seen my previous episodes, I've been doing a couple of videos related to shadow work right now, so perhaps you're here to see the practices that I talked about previously. If you are brand new here and new to shadow work in general, I will say this is going to be just a video on practices and shadow work aspects. I'm really not going to get deep into what shadow work is, why we do it, how it's done, the foundational stuff, preliminary, I was thinking. If you're new, I would totally suggest either pausing this video or as soon as you're done with this video to go and check out my Comprehending Consciousness episode 14, Introduction to Shadow Work, because over there it's like a 20-minute, 15-minute video and I just go over the groundwork, and the basics about what it is, what the term means, what it means to the New Age community, kind of, and also the misconceptions, kind of, that come around, like the mainstream shallow depictions of it, I guess. So, also, I will say, too, I did a follow-up video about, like, the foundations of shadow work and how to get your light right before we do shadow work, during, after, So if you are, like I'll say again, if you're totally new to the concept, I would watch those videos and before you step into practicing things. I'm not going to go into all the reasonings why and all of that jazz here, but just know that it's really crucial to success and to your overall well-being that you understand what light is inside, how you can get it empowered and self-love and all that kind of stuff before you start these practices. That's a foundation of these practices. So please keep that in mind, stay aware, and don't take it lightly, because a lot of inner struggles we kind of wrap ourselves into and we dig ourselves down into because we're starting from a place of either ignorance or false conceptions or just a lack of education in general, right? So I really hope I don't want to confuse or add to anyone's problems out there. So please be mindful and take on these practices only when you're feeling empowered, right? I guess that's going to be my little disclaimer here to start. Now, I've kind of segmented these practices, my notes, into a beginner's level, an intermediate, and then what I'm calling alchemy, I guess, or the alchemist level, where we become alchemists in every day, in every moment, and really you don't have to go into it like practices so much anymore. It becomes more of a cyclic working. Whereas in the beginning, what I'm going to talk about, especially here with the beginner's realm, is these small daily methods, these little changes, little tidbits that you can start to work into your life and into your energetic field that will start to break up the really surface level kind of negativity that kind of gets stale around us when we're condensed and when we're on a more negative vibe. We have lots of shadows, so it's so hard for me to just not go off on a tangent about how important having your light bright is at this point. So I'm holding my tongue so much. These for beginner level and for all of us, right? These are small daily things that can be applied like a template or a framework to workings in different categories of things that you want to work on or what the shadow that you're addressing is. So what I'm going to do is go over the basics of like the template instructions, and I'm going to talk in generalities in big picture terms here. I might give direct examples, but I'm not sure. Maybe we can, if anybody has questions or they have direct examples they'd like to share, we can leave them in the comments or talk about it more in depthly later, because you could do a video on each one of these things, just like comprehending consciousness. It's iceberg terms. This is just the surface crust level that's appearing here. I'm giving you my quick little tour, and then it's up to you to, stay there and do your own map making, put your equipment on, go diving, and underneath the iceberg and explore for yourself, for your world and your working. And that's another reason why I really like to leave things as general as possible, because it shows the subjectiveness and the fluid incorporation that really comes along with this kind of working. And I mean, organic life in general. Anyways, so the first little daily method that I'll talk about is called what I like to call the mental referee. And basically, you could kind of designate a little person inside of you who is the referee and who will throw flags when whatever type of shadow displays itself, pops up. It can be it can be as simple as, like, say you have a lot of negative self-talk. This is one of the first things that I started with this mental referee thing, was a lot of negative self-talk. And I would be like, oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, why'd I do this? Pick out negative things, about everything. I just used to see things in a negative lighting. And I should have mapped this out a little better. Bear with me in this video here, because also I've been doing this work now for like 8 years. And so I'm hearkening back to practices that I started like 9-10 years ago. However, like I said, we use these things all the time, so it never goes away. But it's those intricate things that I did at the beginning of the working that are a little foggy. But anyways, like, catch yourself in the moment. And that's what I used to do with, like, negative. I would catch myself off on a spiral of negative scenarios for futuristic things, or I'd catch myself saying, oh, I'm so stupid, or, anything like that. Catch yourself in the moment and throw a flag at that. Now, when you do that here, the flag throwing is not a critique down and a whistle blowing and a timeout with a dunce cap on energy kind of thing. That's not the light that we're beaming down when we're throwing this flag, right? It is coming from our heart center in a place of unconditional love, that we are casting and throwing our flag down, casting our light down to see it and accept it for what it is. Now, beginners work, it can, it's a working, and it can be almost critiquing at first. It can be that tough love kind of, we need that at first. And we also need to work with our unconditional love to be able to get a feeling of that, because that's a real, unique, personal relationship that, like, only you really build for yourself. So, at first, this mental referee, it can be a bit critiquing, but always try to look at it like a tough love aspect. Like, your mother catching you biting your fingernails, They're not saying don't bite your fingernails just because, to be mean to you, because they think it's disgusting. it's because it comes from a place of love from them. Underneath your fingernails could be dirty. You could scratch your gums. You could put bacteria in your mouth that's not supposed to be there, right? You're damaging your teeth by biting the fingernail. In reverse, you're damaging the fingernail. Anyway, not getting into this. But the point is the energetic intentional space that the shining of the attention, the focusing down comes from is where the working is at. That sets the tone. That's the red carpet, and it really, really matters. So if understanding that working here, and right, it's so unique, it's so individual to each of us that whatever works for you, grasp at that low-hanging fruit as a beginner, right? But really, really, really try not to get into a critiquing place of it where you're marking marks of each time you've done something wrong, keeping a tally and, really being tough, too hard on yourself. That's that's coming from a place of ego, right? That's coming from more of a domination, restriction, controlling, authoritative place of discipline. This is a discipline that comes from temperance. It comes from sacred moderation for overall well-being and balance. It comes from the heart center. And that's why, shadow work really isn't for everybody. And even those who are just waking up, it really isn't. And I talked about this a lot in the other episodes. It's being put out there like it's for everybody, and everybody just go tackle your shit. Excuse my language. But it's frustrating to me, the falsities that get put on it, and why so many people fail, because they're setting everybody up to fail, because we have false expectations here of what the working is, of the whole entire thing. So that's why I say, you have to get your light right. You have to have this heart-centered space. You have to even understand what I'm talking about, about coming from the heart center, before you can do shadow work. And like I said before, if you are not there yet, nothing wrong with that. That's a great place to be at, actually, because it's when you get and when you unlock that heart center, your castle in there, your emerald throne, the palace that sits inside of you, there's nothing like it. There's no feeling like it. And so if you haven't had it yet, you have just all this to discover. Do it first. Don't worry about the shadow work. Don't worry about your faults and all these things that you think are wrong with you and stuff. Go to self-love and go find your heart center. And then the working comes out of there, because you can only shine your light from there. You can only do real healing, which is what shadow work is. We're healing ourselves, right? We're doing introspective self-healing that you have to want to heal, and you have to love yourself and know your worth, that you're worthy of the healing, that you're worthy of self-love, unconditional love, love from others. And that's really, really hard for lots of us. And that's why we think we know we need to do shadow work. We know we've got a lot of things built up in these confinements. We've stuck ourselves in boxes, and now the conceptions are really killing us, It seems like you need to get and go fix those problems. That's how you solve them, by getting out there and fixing them. But that's a real inversion, and it's really there to keep you festering in all your problems and lost in your dark house, like fumbling through the shadows trying to clean up your house. But nothing's going to get done because you're in the dark and you can't see anything. And even when you think you're cleaning and organizing, if you were to turn the lights on, you would just see that you put like this over in the spot, the bread in the spot with the cracker should have been, like your fruits where the vegetables would have been, and things aren't exactly as they seem when you're trying to sort through shadows in the dark. And so yeah, I'm back on a tangent about why it's important. So I'm sure you can understand, why I can get carried away with the importance of protecting our light and doing the inner work and having love first. Because if you go into mental referee work, you can really harm yourself. You can turn into, the inner self-critic that's super toxic like the evil stepmother kind of aspect, or over-controlling mother aspect, that really dominating feminine energy that's harmful and critiques to cut down. And that's a cyclic wound that's going to fester and scab and hurt if you do work from that space, right? So really cautionary work here. Anyways, for the mental referee now, try to keep it on space. When we do this practice, so first things first, you're deciding what you want to change. You are, okay, I have this negative thought patterns. Now, I'm in my day-to-day thing. Now, all of a sudden I notice I'm off on a negative thought pattern thing. I notice, try to laugh it off, or try to, at least give it a compassionate, empathetic feeling. Oh, I'm sorry, I was stuck in that state. I'm working to switch that now. That's the mental referee, right? Throwing the flag down. I'm working to switch this. Now, there's different kinds of working that you can do here. Once you've casted your light, thrown the flag down. First and foremost, most people like to replace it with something positive. So say that negative thought pattern, I reel myself back in. I notice the present moment, my breath. And I refuel with a positive affirmation or two. I choose to live in the present moment. I am worthy. Anything. I am enough. Everything is as it should be. The universe has it under control. Any of these kind of like bring it back and grounding feelings, you can replace those thoughts with that and correct yourself. And then you're on your way. And then next time you notice you're off on a negative thought pattern, oh, no thank you, I don't consent to that anymore. I'm not using my mental space to fill that anymore. I have chosen to direct myself back to the present moment. Take a deep breath. Notice the air quality in your room, some sounds, smells. Bring yourself back into the present moment. Replace with positive changes that you'd rather see in yourself. Same thing if it's words that you're constantly using, or you swear a lot, or I said I'm sorry all the time, and I'm working on changing that. You can do it with certain words. You can also do it with actual shadow work that needs to be done, that say is overreacting to things, by certain things you're triggered by, and you overreact. Like you overreact at traffic when you're driving, or you overreact stupid commercials that pop up on YouTube, or you overreact like to this common thing that sometimes people always bring up. Say like with my red hair, maybe if somebody had a comment to say like about the redhead, it maybe would trigger me, make me feel insecure or something. I used that previously to infuse self-love with that acceptance, and to be who I am, and to embody it, and to own it. But anyway, these things are more complicated because they're a whole body of information and energy that's all kind of tangled up with lots of different times that they've been triggered with us and workings through past, present, and future. And we have a whole mind game, stories that we tell ourselves about it, and usually almost like a caricature that's attached to that as well. If that's the kind of triggers that you want to use the mental referee work for, you certainly can. But it's more helpful with those that you're not trying to force positive changes on those. When there's a lot embodying something, and a lot of work to be done with that caricature or that shadow. The light shining is just for acceptance and love at that point, to see them as they are and stop and listen, or just be quiet, just hold space, just allow them to be who they are, and speak. They will, and they will let you know why they're overreacting. They will bubble up with that underlying truth that comes through, like say it's traffic that you overreact to all the time, and you like to wicked mad and you scream about it. You might sit with yourself when that's happening in the car. As soon as you notice, like you're getting crazy about it, you can take a deep breath, center yourself in the moment, but instead of trying to replace and think, oh, why am I thinking this? Or, oh, think happy thoughts, just think it away. I am super aggravated right now. My blood is pumping right now. I'm furious. I'm going to be late. I'm going to look like a fool. Um, I'm going to be, maybe you're continually late and now you're really worried because, oh, you're late again. Or maybe you're never late and this is the one time you're going to be late and you're real strict about always being on time. You know, these workings are personal and very intricate too. And so that's why I like to give, like I said at the start, a general template, right? But for the example, right, sit with it. Let it speak to you. Let it feel. I feel raging, burning anger inside of me right now. I feel like I want to scream. And then, okay, feel it. But once you feel extreme emotion, whether it's pain, discomfort, aggravation, hate, rage, whatever it is, it has a point, a precipice, a peak that it will trough down. And as soon as it's coming down, you can assess that better with that shadow and say, like, how could I make you feel better about this? How can we get through this? Because it's happening. We're already late. We're stuck here. We're in this position, or we've done this. How best do we move forward? How do you feel is best to move forward, right? When we work with our shadow in a way where we're coming to teamwork to try to co-create a better solution for both of us, instead of telling it needs to be happy or feel better now or whatever it is, like, and maybe it's just nothing's going to make me feel better right now. And then that comes with patience and sitting through and holding space, because that's what unconditional love is. It doesn't go anywhere. And even when bad things are happening, we're in a lot of pain, we're stuck in traffic, and there's 20 million cars in front of you, you literally can't go anywhere, right? What do you do? Right? How we choose to get through every present moment sets our tone. Why choose to lock yourself into uncomfortable pain? And that's kind of conversations you can have with the shadow aspect of you, and ask them about that, or just let them think on it, and you think on it, It's not about rushing to answers or anything. So yeah, that's the mental referee work. That's kind of like in the moment practice, small daily things that, whether it's bigger, like the last things that we talked about with the shadow work thing, that's a little bit bigger. But, trying to change little habits that's a great way for daily things, especially mental habits. One last thing with the mental referee, I will say a good thing people sometimes do is also like a wearable that reminds them, sensory-wise, to catch themselves in the moment, like an elastic band that you can flick, or I would say that's all I can think of right now is like an elastic band that you flick, and that it like lets you know, hey, stop it. Anyways, other quick daily things that you can get into for beginners to do once in a while. You can work every day, once a day, or whenever in the day that you catch yourself in the mirror or in any mirror reflection. Look at yourself in the eyes and say, I love you. Or if that's too much or too hokey or too cheesy, you can look at yourself in the eyes and say, I see you. I see you just as you are, and you're perfect as you are. Or I see your worth just as you are. Sometimes it's enough to just say, I see you. I see you. With a gratitude and acceptance and openness in your heart. Sometimes mirror work can be really off-putting at first, and some people love it. I love it. I gravitated towards it very quickly, but some people are very offset by it. But if you are, that's the first thing is to say, why am I? Right? Why? And try to offer some assistance to why you might feel that way. Are you super unhappy with the way you look, or do you just think it's nonsense, or do you don't think you're worthy of love, or you don't have the time, maybe, I will say, like, even if you feel like sarcastic or bad about it, or you feel like it's a joke, the more that you look at yourself and say, I love you real quick, the better it becomes, the more it has a huge working. It's like aerating a garden. You know, all these little daily practices really are like to get the ground soil fertile and ready to do more intermediate work. They just give you these little of positivities, of frequency changes, interruptions, pattern interruptions, you know, negative vibe interruptions in your field, in the matrix that you reside in, that we all do, right? They're little bubbles of positivity. And the more that you get used to them and incorporate them, you will like them and want to feel more of them, right? And then they become almost expectations. And it becomes a really beautiful working. But it can start with, just that quick little catch yourself in the mirror. Or spend 2 minutes or 1 minute or as long as you can, like giving yourself like, just, I love you, thank you for who you are. Look yourself right in the eye. Gratitude journals or thought journals are huge things. Or even, it doesn't have to be whole journaling out, like, dear diary, today this happened and I'm very thankful for it. It can be post-it note, real quick. I'm thankful my car started today, and stick it on your dashboard. And every time you get in the car and your car starts, remember to remind yourself, I'm thankful, thank you for starting. Or, you can thank yourself for breathing, or, thank your heart for beating. Things that are very base level, very small and simplistic, really work well for people who are really caged in and have a lot of negativity, or have a lot of problem with expressing gratitude or receiving gratitude back, right? Feeling others feel their worth and things, If you struggle a lot with compliments, or you struggle a lot with worrying about what others are thinking about you, little gratitude practices are huge, and they will make a big, big, big difference in your life. Journaling in general really will, it's a great practice to get into. You can also just, gratitude journal doesn't have to be writing at all either. It could be a grateful thought practice where you wake up in the morning and you just think through all the things you're grateful for, or at the end of the night, or, sporadically throughout the day. You can, whenever you're reminded of it, you could just say, hey, I am so grateful for today. I'm grateful to be me. Or I'm grateful for my kid, my pet, whatever it is. Another quick beginner tip that can be really helpful just to start out is just cut out one little bad habit that maybe you've been trying to, or saying you're going to, or wanting to for a really long time, right? Make a commitment, a promise to yourself. Try it out. Really give it your all too. Like, go into it like you're really going to do it, and try to do that with one bad habit that maybe you've been thinking for a long time. Instead of trying to do a million things, like clean your whole house at one time, right? You just start with one room, or you just start with right where you are, where you're sitting. Clean your little desk up real quick, and then move on to the next thing. You can do your bad, quote-unquote bad habits, or the things that you're not really liking about yourself, or the things that maybe that you're not sure why you're doing them, but you've just done them for so long, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, why do I do that? Don't even get any enjoyment out of it. I'm ready to let it go. Or maybe I'd start a new habit, right? One new little thing that you've always wanted to try or do. Go for it. Weed it in. And make a promise or a commitment to yourself and say, I'm beginning this beginner shadow work practices. And this is a commitment to my soul's evolution, to my inner alchemy, my energetic body, to make sure that I feel great, that I am charged, vitalized, that I can do great work and help others, That's where this kind of work and this kind of desiring to change yourself comes from, And again, I'm going to try not to get into foundational importance and all of that stuff, but intention is everything. If you're doing things, trying to get rid of this bad habit because your mother looks at it and she doesn't like it, and so you now feel like it's a bad habit and you need to get rid of it, and you're going to do some work so that you can brag to her about stopping doing this or whatever, That is not, that's like a very egoic, um, base level, you know, superficial, that's the word I'm looking for. It's a very superficial intention. Instead, if you pull it all the way back, really pull all the layers back and say, I'm doing this work so that my soul, myself, my heart, and my being alive today has the best experiences that I can imagine for myself. And I'm doing that, you know, from a space of wanting the best for myself so that I can be the best version of myself out there and enjoy my life. That's where these, like, cutting bad habits out, or that's where bringing new ones in, where you find that dedication, motivation, you know, the determination, because it's all about you. It's self. It's your self-worth, really, your sovereignty. Final thing I'll add in here for kind of beginners practices, even though it's more intermediate, but beginners can benefit a lot from it too, if they're in the relative space of understanding, is like crystals, energetic work like Reiki healing or energy healing, detox teas and herbology, detoxing your physical vessel, you know, eating clean, changing your diet, aligning yourself with foods that work with your frequencies, your specific physical body vessel. I'm a huge believer in thinking that we each have, you know, a unique diet and type of way of eating that's best for us, for our own being and our own unique design. And so I don't like to push certain food choices, but I will just say, you know, obviously we are organic, natural beings here on earth, meant to be incorporating into our vessels things that are made of the same substances of us, right? That's a big clue. All of our molecular body, all of the elements that build us up, right? The periodic table of elements, these things create all of our world that we inhabit, and all of the food that we've always eaten, and incorporate into our body, because what does food happen? I mean, what happens to food when it goes inside of you, but it becomes you, right? That's so important, right? And do you want to be becoming more filled with light and organic processes and happiness, hydration, like these great feelings, or you want to bog yourself down with sticky, gooey feelings and these long chain things that are really difficult work for our inner body to work through, and they end up binding and gluing, and then we just store them in places, and our body can never really process them, and then we're just larger and bigger and unhealthy, right? Disease and unease collects inside the body. So yeah, small practices like that, or even just the learning base of those things. If you're sparked by a health revolution, you know, go look at different types of diets and incorporate, you know, real food into your life, and crystals. And I really love crystals. They're so personal, and there's such great working in there with those. And some beginners really resonate towards them, and that you can release things into them. They can give you great information and downloads. They can do healing. You know, if you're into that and you're a beginner's level, nothing wrong with it to go into those. I will say, and I'm going to bring it down into intermediate here now, once you really can get your light right and you're feeling empowered, you're doing cleansing and clearing, and feeling yourself more heart-centered, right? And able to really pull back and get in the observer role a lot more, right? You're feeling your conscious awareness expand to where the reality that you inhabit is wider, it's in the flow, you have more space, more energy, more time. When you're feeling that and you're in the intermediate level, you know, you can do great deep work with crystals. You can do, you can incorporate fasting and detoxes, do a week stretch, and allow whatever shadow aspects that you're working on offering detox to, or cleansing or healing, too, great for the 3D matrix, physical vessel diseasing, unease in the body. The detoxes and the fasting shadow work is amazing, and you feel the benefits. You feel wonderful, and that can really, be great for intermediate people. It keeps you wanting to do the work. It keeps you knowing there's more to yourself, to your journey here, to the practices. We get into it. Also, I'll say this very quickly before I get into other practices for intermediate level. Intermediate level is, we see a real cyclitic, spread out practice over days, weeks, months, years even, okay? And this is spurts of work and spurts of rest time. Sprints and walks, right? Contracts and revoking consent, right? Reassessing contracts and revoking consent. And the reason I'm saying, it's over weeks and months of time is because everybody's so different shadows take different amounts of time. There's so many layers, so many of us, have just layers and layers. Our whole house, it's not just our attic with a little bit of shadow, or our basement with a little bit of shadow. It's a whole house of things, and it takes a lot of time, and you have to allow yourself that sacred divine timing, whether it's days and weeks, whether your cycles are months and years even. The dark nights of the souls can last a very long time. But you'll get a sense of it. The more that you do the working, you'll feel it. The more that you're in the spurting time, the running time, when you're feeling bright and light, is when you're ready to do the shadow work. And then you go and you align some shadows, you dig through them, you feel them, you see them, you allow them, you listen to them, you bring in their information, their input, you hear the versions of their solutions. You really do that honest working for however long amount of time it takes you to do that working. And then you'll feel a completeness, you'll feel a fullness with that. You'll feel okay, I am incorporating now. I might have immediate solutions to offer. I might just have love and support right now to offer. And it is sometimes it's a total resting space where, if you're not doing it enough, or you're just starting, or perhaps you're stuck in liar loops, this can be the time where you feel like you can't go on anymore. You might totally deplete your energy. In these rest cycles, it can be real downs, dark nights of the soul, rock bottoms. Been through them, really life-changing events. However, what I'll say is that I've learned, when we're down there at our weakest, that is our potentiality for the strongest we'll ever be, right? The lowest low is where we measure from our high, how high our highest high is. And so it's a beautiful working of contrast, duality. You can't have one without the other. But to remember the intermediate work is very important, to respect these cycles. It's very important to see them and understand them in their working. And when you're feeling running and you feel full of energy, to know that's a great time to do shadow work. And then when you're ready to rest, allow yourself to rest. Rest completely. Seek true rejuvenation, nurturing, nourishment, and those are individual things that come through practice in ways that are best for you to do that kind of work. So now that I've kind of said about intermediate work and how we're working through cycles, I'm going to focus just on when we're ready to do shadow work, these practices for intermediate work. I talked about crystal work, and detoxing, and fasting is another big thing. Meditation is huge, and beginners will get into a little bit of meditation, hopefully, or maybe you love to meditate. either way, meditation in intermediate level becomes really a working foundational piece that you've got to get into the habit of. Quieting the mind, learning to listen, finding space in the silence, so that you can really learn what your neutrality, your homeostasis is, what your energetic body feels like, so that you can pull it in, feel it, be able to work balancing within yourself and in a loving way. And then also, this helps us to feel and hear and sense exterior infringements, right? Which can be very important, because exterior infringements come in all sorts of informational ways, right? They can come from directly from words from others. They come from societal things imposed upon us. They come in energetically. They come in physically, you know. But when we do this work and when we start to listen to yourself only and quiet the mind, you know, they become very obvious over time in different ways, you know, different kinds. But that's why meditation practice is huge. There's all kinds of meditation practices too, and I'll get into those. I think I'll just do it probably, I'm pushing 40 minutes here. Yeah, I have to do like a whole video. I'll have to do a different video on the meditation practices specifically. However, other things, during meditation, you know, there's different kinds of ways that we assess the shadow during meditation. But the silencing of the mind, the quieting here of the frenetics is the intermediate practice that's most important. So whether you learn to get there through guided meditations or music or breath work, you know, or simply sitting in silence, you know, different things work for different people. But however you can get into that space for you, that's where the intermediate work is. Learning about it, getting there longer, starting with even just 1 minute, and then learning how to build it to 5 or 10 or 20. You know, that's the intermediate working, really. And other things are, for intermediate shadow work, is writing things out, assessing yourself honestly, talk therapy, talking things out with people. I talked about that before, about getting with mentors or other light workers or like shamans or religious people, whoever is like a guidance in your life, any kind of thing like that. It can be a best friend. It can be a pet, you know. It can be as simple as talking to yourself. Get yourself a little voice recorder, like on the computer or whatever, and just go blab and talk out what you need to talk out. Get it off your chest, even though nobody would ever listen to it, or share it. That's beautiful too. Make a shadow work podcast for yourself, you know. Some people love to display that kind of stuff, and some people love to keep it private. Whatever works for you is what works, right? I talked about energy healing already and healing the physical vessel. Things about contracts and revoking contracts, I'll get into that with meditative work, but that is also huge. Cord cutting, or removing entanglements as other work that works really well for others. That starts in the intermediate. We do a lot of that with regular energy alchemy, so that's more of like, okay, I'm pushing into the alchemist level. I'm seeing more of the horizon of this kind of work, the potential of it, and of myself, and then we get into really like just disarming entanglements and working through infringements in real time and stuff. Before that really is, you know, it's all the learning how your own unique shadow work plays out for you, how your shadows play out, you know, finding your the harmony that you're meant to represent, listening quiet enough to hear your inner harp and how it sounds, and then you learn to play it, and which notes resonate beautifully with you, and you learn how to play that for yourself and charge your body up really well. Yes, that's a version of light work. However, when we get into this intermediate work here, closer to becoming an alchemist, light work and shadow work really start to become kind of all in one thing almost. They have different energetic workings, but the unconditional love of it is the sameness. And so a lot of the practices start to become kind of sameness, except you're using them at different points. That, you know, and initially that's why I call them templates, because they're a set of directions, but based on the uniqueness of the scenario, the shadow, whatever you're working with at the moment, right? The potentials of the way that that template is played out is perfectly unique to that situation. Yeah, and so once you really come into this place of knowing these workings and finding them for yourself and honing them, you're getting ready to be an alchemist. You're going to realize, right, this practice is life is eternal. It's all a cyclic, never-ending flow. And once you get into the real workings of the flow and the rest spurt day-night cycle becomes more of, oh, you can really watch dawn happening and into day and into evening, and you watch dusk into night and night coming back to dawn. Like, it doesn't look so cut and dry as day and night anymore. It becomes 24 hours. And then once you've been watching that 24-hour cycle within yourself, understanding that it's 24 hours you're witnessing, holy moly, it becomes internal life, and like time starts to spread out, and you say to yourself, wait a minute, it's not even 24 hours, it's continuous. It's never ending. It's the present moment. And then that becomes energy alchemy work, because there's a blending of past, present, and future in your energetic body, in your being, in the reality that you embody in yourself. Time is relative, right? And as we do more work and we get more into these shadow work aspects, you start to really get a huge understanding of what that means. Because things that you clear from the past and that you work in shadows are in your future, in your present moment, the next moment, feeling better, feeling clearer. You can feel the changes that you've made almost instantaneously. And then the feeling of the changes you've made harkens in these better positive possibilities for the future. And so the thing that you were feeling before that you had to even was cyclic really has smoothed itself out, and now you've brought yourself to a higher level. And it's not to say that you won't be infringed upon or there aren't other shadows that will work themselves at higher levels. It's that you've accepted that, you're expecting almost it, and you're ready for it, you know. It becomes assessment and instead of assessment and interaction, right? It just becomes a communion, a constant relationship. It's like osmosis, kind of. It's just like always happening. And ideally, we really get into these places where we're no longer storing things, where we wouldn't store traumatic things. We wouldn't shy away from bad things happening to us and store it for later, you know. We would assess, accept, and stand our ground in the moment, know our sovereign worth, you know. Stay true to our true truths, never bending our light and causing inner shadows, right? That's the true alchemist in the alchemy work. Balancing, I guess, is what the basics of it, right? And so what I'll say is all these practices, the small things and the things you built up from intermediate practice, they all remain your practices as an alchemist. And at that alchemy level, they're just deeper, they're more intricate, they have such flavor and depth, personality to them, so intricate to you, so personal to your nuances, to the shadows and the catalysts, the obstacles that you face in your life. So with the practice is settled, like I said, I'll make a devoted video to kind of meditative practices, the intermediate level, deeper workings of how we can bring in other healing kind of methodologies, right? That play a deeper role. These visualization practices that maybe we can get into that really help with energy work. Also, big things that can help, especially intermediate and alchemy level, is like chanting, singing, humming, buzzing, affirmations, speaking, right? Tuning forks, grounding mats, massage therapy, singing bowls, sound therapy, color therapy, yoga, breath work, exercise, Reiki, um, Tai Chi, so many things that get our energetic bodies moving that you will find if they work for you, if you resonate with them. And there's millions more out there too that I'm not going to go over right now at the end of the video. But once you get into that intermediate level and you're thirsty for more knowledge, more paths to bring in more healing, more ways to embody light, you'll find your beautiful things that you're called to, They make our way into our reality like magnets called to us, things that soothe us, specifically nurture us, They're just waiting for you to say yes to them out there to come in. So you get the feeling of it when you do continual shadow work over, periods of time. And I'm almost at an hour, and I haven't even touched on the major players of the shadow, so really quickly, like I said at the start, these are kind of things that are helpful to envision as characters all of their own, sort of, inside of your being, that you can work with. I don't want to, and I want to really point out quickly, it's not a dissociative boxing off containment of caricatures that I am trying to enable here. I understand completely and personally from a very personal level about the quote-unquote like psychological world and the disassociational things about personality disorders. I'm not enabling that. I'm not trying to say that that's a way of dealing things. This is not that whatsoever. But it's helpful to visualize these major players as real personalities within you because it loosens things up. It helps the imagination space and your intuition start to talk and feel and have a conversation with your heart center again, and work with the brain too, in the visualization space to just bring in better energy, right? And we do this work at intermediate and alchemist levels when we're not going to be feeding shadows, when we're not going to be allowing the observer to step in and get lost in the role of any of these people, okay? That's a huge other foundational work that beginners, don't get into this work for because there's true risks of getting lost in players and you don't realize you're an actor with a mask on. And so many of us are stuck in those roles. And so if you don't even understand, if you can't understand masks that you wear yet, you're at the beginner's role, don't feel bad about that. This comes with time. This comes with understanding. But don't jump into practices like this straight away. Anyways, so the major players that we can work with on different levels are the ego, right? The inner child, the inner mother, or your inner critic. Sometimes we can say that as your inner father or your inner restrictor, right? The inner authoritative person. And we have wounded versions of our past selves that get stored away, sort of like a Barbie in a case. This here happened to me with this, right? We have stored versions of ourselves with events, big and little things, real trauma and small traumas. All those kinds of things get stored. We have old personas or characters, versions of ourselves that maybe we played around others for social settings or that we felt like we needed to fit into an angle. And so we have this certain persona. And there's also the huge victimization and abuser roles that a lot of us have, tormenting us on the inside. All of those entities can be segmented and worked with on a really personal level in the imagination space and through your heart center. And this is where, we get into working with the higher self and or with guides or angels or source or other people, light workers can help us during this time when we're real beginners. Because it can be really hard to objectively look at these aspects of ourselves, right? Even when we do a lot of work, it's still really hard. However, it is worth it. It pays off. It becomes in a place where you can have amazing relationships with these people or characters inside your head. And then, there's such layerings of workings that I'll get into later. I'll go over, all the ways that we can sit with each one of these and do meditations and help them and guide them and all that jazz, because I'm already at an hour. So if you have listened so far for me today, thank you so much for joining me with these shadow work practices. I hope that they will give you some working to tackle in your own life. If you have questions or comments, things that you love to do, or if you have anything you want to share or, would like assistance on, feel free to leave a reply, or you can always send me an email. Find me on amariespeaks.com. I'd love to hear responses from all. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a beautiful day or evening wherever in the world you are. I will talk to you next time.